What if every choice you've ever made was never fully yours? Imagine thinking you chose freely, only to discover that invisible architects have been guiding your thoughts, emotions, and actions all along. From the clothes you wear to the causes you champion, forces beyond your awareness pull the threads of your mind. Consider the young professional who insists she decided to buy the latest smartphone, yet finds herself swayed by a single, well-placed ad that surfaced just when she felt uncertain. Think of the student who believes she formed an independent opinion on a political debate, unaware that dozens of curated articles and well-timed tweets shaped her convictions before she even realized she was listening. These aren't isolated accidents. They're the daily proof that our inner world is never as private as we presume. Long before the digital age, Niccolò Machiavelli dissected the anatomy of influence. In the flickering torchlight of Renaissance Florence, he sought to understand how a ruler could bend people's wills without leaving a trace. His masterpiece, The Prince, cracked open the human psyche and exposed its vulnerabilities. Machiavelli's words were not a call to villainy, but a surgical inquiry into the levers of power, how fear, favor, and facade can be deployed with precision. Today, those same levers echo in every notification ping, every viral video, every persuasive slogan. We live in an environment engineered to guide our choices towards someone else's ends. And yet, for every hidden puppet master, there exists a counterweapon: awareness. By tracing these invisible strings back to their origin, we can begin to loosen their grip. In the next moments, we embark on a journey through history and psychology, uncovering the techniques that have shaped empires and shaped minds. We will chart a path from the dusty manuscripts of Machiavelli's study to the glowing screens of our present day. The stakes are simple but profound: mastery over our own minds, or perpetual servitude to unseen forces. In the heart of 16th century Florence, a city of marble palaces and whispered conspiracies, Niccolò Machiavelli sat hunched over his desk. Ink-stained fingers traced the margins of parchments as he questioned every assumption about power. How does a prince rise? How does he hold on when rivals hunger at his gates? With these questions burning in his mind, Machiavelli produced a manual that would echo through the centuries: The Prince. He argued, dispassionately, that moral virtue and raw effectiveness often stand at odds. To maintain authority, a ruler must sometimes embrace fear over affection, because fear is tethered to survival, while love is fickle. It is better to be feared than loved, he wrote, if you cannot be both. This was not a callous boast. It was a stark diagnosis of human nature drawn from betrayal, battlefields, and betrayals on the battlefield alike. Yet Machiavelli's intent was more intricate than simple ruthlessness. He dissected the art of appearances, how a leader cloaked cruelty in necessity, or generosity in spectacle, so that the masses perceived stability rather than brutality. He laid bare the calculated dance between benevolence and menace, never wholly abandoning kindness, yet always reminding subjects who held the sword. But who was Machiavelli himself? A diplomat tossed between dueling city-states, a scholar exiled when his patrons fell from favor. His life was a testament to the very forces he analyzed: shifting loyalties, fragile alliances, and the constant need to adapt. In exile, free from courtly obligations, he distilled decades of observation into a text that stripped away chivalric pretenses and revealed power's most effective tools. Fast forward to our own era. When a politician seizes a crisis to tighten control, they echo Machiavelli's counsel to exploit opportunity. When an ad campaign carefully blends flattery with urgency, it mirrors his advice to balance reward with threat. Every headline that stokes panic, every marketing pitch that taps our deepest insecurities. These are descendants of Machiavelli's blueprint. Understanding The Prince means recognizing that its cold logic isn't confined to thrones and scepters. It survives in boardrooms, in newsrooms, and behind every algorithm that whispers, "Buy now, click here, or believe this." Yet the text's greatest lesson lies not in submission to its tactics, but in illumination. Once you see the mechanics of power laid bare, you gain the first weapon in self-defense: clarity. By the end of this section, you will no longer view influence as mysterious or mystical, but as an intricate system of cause and effect. You will understand that Machiavelli's real gift was turning power from an occult art into a series of observable principles. Next, we'll journey inward, tracking how these external levers of control map onto the hidden corridors of your own mind. Across centuries and continents, the playbook of influence passed from dusty tomes into human heads. To see how, we must venture from Machiavelli's courtly intrigues into the laboratories where the mind reveals its hidden susceptibilities. Here, in the hushed corridors of academia, researchers uncovered that our sense of self-agency is far more fragile than we believe. Stanley Milgram's electric shocks weren't sadism tests. They were mirrors held up to our instinctive obedience. Volunteers, convinced they were helping science, pressed buttons that delivered escalating jolts to unseen strangers. Despite hearing cries of pain, many continued because an authority figure urged them on. The truth was chilling. Normal people will betray their own moral compass under the right social pressure. Then came Solomon Asch, lining up students against a blatant falsehood. When Confederates unanimously named the shorter line as longer, one by one, test subjects went along, even when their eyes told them otherwise. Their need to belong, to align with the group, overpowered their perception. In that moment, the individual mind surrendered to collective consensus. Further experiments exposed more fault lines. Zimbardo's prison simulation morphed everyday students into tormentors and victims. Cialdini's work revealed how favors create hidden debts. Scarcity and social proof proved potent enough to make often rational adults snap up trivial goods in panicked hordes. Each finding laid bare a cognitive shortcut that once served evolution, letting us make quick decisions in life-or-death scenarios, but now primes us for exploitation. These studies converge on one unsettling conclusion. Manipulation is not an exotic weapon wielded by a few masterminds, but a reflex woven into our neural circuitry. Authority bias, the deference we show to perceived experts, can be activated by the simplest white coat or the soft voice of a trusted influencer. Social proof triggers us to imitate actions we see others performing, even when they conflict with our better judgment. Reciprocity nudges us to return favors before we're conscious of owing them. Yet, recognizing these cognitive biases is not merely an academic exercise. It is a vital act of self-defense. By illuminating the hidden algorithms of our own minds, we gain the power to interrupt them. Pausing before we obey, questioning group consensus, rejecting emotional triggers. These small acts of awareness can cascade into dramatic shifts in autonomy. As we close this chapter, consider how every advert whispering limited time, every news bulletin punctuating fear, every social media trend begging for shares, all activate these psychological mechanisms. From Machiavelli's parchment to Milgram's obedience chair, the tools of manipulation have evolved, but the target remains the same: our unquestioning compliance. In the next section, we will assemble these historical and psychological insights into a precise playbook, a dossier of tactics employed by those who seek to steer our thoughts and actions without our knowing. And armed with that knowledge, you will learn to spot the moves long before they take hold. Across the ages, those who sought to bend crowds and kingdoms to their will have drawn from a remarkably consistent playbook. Underneath the flourish of banners or the polished veneer of corporate branding lies a handful of core tactics, each exploiting a particular human vulnerability. Let's unpack 4 of the most enduring strategies and trace their lineage from antiquity to the present day. 1. Divide and rule. In ancient Rome, policymakers deliberately pitted subject peoples against one another, ensuring no coalition could ever unite against the imperial center. By fostering rivalries, tribal, regional, religious, they guaranteed that local leaders would depend on Rome's favor for protection. Fast forward to modern boardrooms. Executives quietly sow competition between departments, leaking privileged information to one manager but not another. The result is the same fractured loyalty and an unquestioned central authority. Divide and rule works because it weaponizes our in-group/out-group instincts. We defend our tribe at all costs, even when those costs serve someone else's agenda. 2. False promises. During the French Revolution, pamphleteers filled the streets with grandiose manifestos: liberty, equality, fraternity, knowing that stirring language would recruit the idealistic masses. Yet, once in power, the revolution devoured its own architects. Today's equivalent appears in the form of clickbait headlines or political slogans. Simple, emotionally charged pledges that trigger hope and commitment before any details exist to be examined. Once you've invested your trust, retracting it feels like betraying yourself, so you cling tighter to the promise, even when evidence mounts that it cannot be kept. 3. Fear and panic. In medieval Europe, rulers unleashed tales of external threats, Mongol hordes, Ottoman sieges, to justify sweeping emergency powers and punitive taxation. Chronicles describe entire provinces trembling at whispers of invasion. Now consider how 24/7 news networks highlight the rarest of tragedies, only to loop images and alarmist commentary until viewers demand action. Whether it's terrorism alerts or consumer recalls, the sudden escalation of fear narrows our focus and compels us to accept solutions we wouldn't normally challenge. Scarcity of safety breeds compliance. 4. Doublespeak. In the courts of Versailles, euphemisms masked brutal realities. Special operations replaced massacre. Regimental redeployment stood in for enslavement. Today, we identify this tactic in sanitized corporate memos and political press releases, right-sizing for layoffs, enhanced interrogation for torture. By reframing language, manipulators recast horrors as necessities, dull our moral alarms, and shift the battleground from ethics to semantics. Behind each of these tactics lies a psychological lever, whether it's our need for belonging, for cognitive consistency, for safety, or for linguistic coherence. When wielded in concert, they form an almost invisible architecture of influence. Recognizing any single tactic is not enough. Real power comes from seeing how they interlock. Imagine the crescendo of divided loyalties primed for false promises, all underpinned by a drumbeat of fear and cloaked in deceptive language. It's a symphony of control, as relevant to Renaissance princes as it is to today's media empires. Yet awareness of this playbook shatters its spells. When you identify each method at work, the subtle pitfall of division, the promise that binds, the panic that paralyzes, the words that warp, you regain the freedom to question, to pause, to choose. Next, we'll turn our lens to the modern era. The digital age supercharges these ancient strategies, amplifying every ad, algorithm, and echo chamber. By mapping each tactic onto today's technologies, you'll gain precise tools to detect manipulation before it tightens its grip. Every notification ping, every autoplay video, every subtle recommendation cuts through our day like an unseen blade. Today's architects of influence no longer need parchment and quill. They wield algorithms, data troves, and instant global reach. In this modern era, Machiavelli's ancient stratagems have found their mirror, an unblinking reflection of how power exploits psychology at unprecedented scale. Political propaganda. Electoral campaigns now behave like precision weapons factories. Through micro-targeted ads, they feed individual voters customized narratives designed to tug at personal fears and desires. If Machiavelli counseled exploiting crisis, today's campaigns manufacture them. A viral scandal erupts online, magnified by bot armies and coordinated hashtags. Filter bubbles ensure dissenting voices never enter the feed. The result is not mass persuasion, but mass fragmentation. Each voter enclosed in a digital echo chamber where the chosen message feels incontrovertible. When millions believe different facts, collective reality shatters. Corporate persuasion. Imagine a shopping app that tracks not just what you click, but when you hesitate. The next screen flashes a limited-time offer, triggering scarcity bias. Emails arrive with your name embedded in glowing fonts, invoking reciprocity and social proof. Join 5,000 others who've claimed theirs. Here, the Machiavellian balance of fear and favor plays out in milliseconds. Fear of missing out plus the lure of belonging. Beneath the veneer of personalized convenience lies a calculated architecture of desire, exploiting every cognitive shortcut we honed for survival. Media and misinformation. In the old courts, doublespeak masked truths. Now, every tweet and headline can be engineered to sow confusion. A single falsified image, shared by an account with a credible veneer, becomes the seed of a conspiracy theory. As it spreads, confirmation, bias, and motivation to belong lock in believers. When reputable outlets debunk the falsehood, the initial message often spread wider than the correction, because outrage burns brighter than rational rebuttal. The result is a landscape where emotions outpace evidence, and every outrage cycle resets the parameters of what the crowd will accept next. These three strands, political, commercial, informational, do not operate in isolation. They intertwine, amplifying each other's effects. An ad campaign leverages political fear. A news cycle co-ops corporate branding. A viral conspiracy infiltrates advertising platforms. This complexity mirrors Machiavelli's counsel to deploy multiple levers at once. Use fear to fracture unity, false promises to inspire hope, and doublespeak to muddy moral judgment. But the most unsettling realization is that we participate willingly. We click the links, we share the posts, we validate the manipulator's reach with every interaction. We become both the audience and the vehicle for our own persuasion.